Hello, Bloomington Normal. Welcome to the Ryan Mack Show. I am your host, Ryan Mack. It is Saturday, and we have a lot to talk about today. You ever get sick and tired of Democrats and unelected bureaucrats making policy that doesn't align with your core values? Of course, that's all politicians. They always have their own agenda. But they seem to implement policies and they either go south quickly or they get sued and they have to flip. Well, today I'm going to share my thoughts on all these latest bans that politicians and most importantly Democrats try to shove in the faces of Americans everywhere under the guise of we know what's best for you than you do. And I have some examples of different ways in which they implement these bans. And the solutions to a couple of these have been lawsuits. But another solution, you're going to want to hear this. But first, you can join in the show anytime today to join the conversation by texting 309-451-9299. 309-451-9299. This is the Ryan Mack Show on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So if you've noticed the news lately, you've heard there is a state gun law attempting to eliminate the ability to own certain firearms and magazines, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the Illinois level. It's currently being litigated in several different lawsuits. So that's where that ban is going. J.B. Pritzker and Democrats in Illinois thought it'd be a good idea to ban assault weapons that they themselves cannot even define. So I'll get into that in a little bit. Also, I don't know if you've heard the last couple of weeks, there is a federal agency that is trying to discuss banning gas stoves. Apparently, gas stoves are bad, and they're bad for the environment, and they also cause your kids' asthma. I grew up with asthma, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't caused from a gas stove. So that's what we're going to be on talking about today. In other realm of bans, they planned to ban natural gas, obviously, but also gasoline that goes to your cars and any diesel, basically any fossil fuels, by 2030 or 2035. And about half the states have already banned or stopped drilling, and they've made it a point to get rid of all gas cars and vehicles by 2030. Weird, because they haven't done any studies on the effect of removing said millions of cars and vehicles from the road without having a national impact and a backup plan. Because I don't know if you've noticed, those states that have implemented a ban and limited you to only driving electric vehicles have also had problems keeping the power on to those vehicles. So there's that. Anyway, if you're like me and you are tired of government and bureaucratic bans without any kind of public input other than voting, because you can vote these people in and you can actually have them make laws that better fit your interest, right? Well, when the last time the government tried to ban anything, it was a colossal failure. If you can think about what was the last major public national policy that the government tried to do in the name of it will be better to reduce X, what would you think it would be? And no, it's not climate change, because that's coming down the pipeline if not already happening. This was constitutional amendment. Yeah, that's right, I said it. Constitutional amendment. And then later on had to repeal it. Those of you who follow the Constitution should know what I'm talking about. So the government decided in the 1920s that alcohol should be banned. And it proved to be a colossal failure, because that decade spurred a whole lot of other problems when government bans take place. You form background and underground sales networks, all kinds of back alley transactions whenever you ban something nationally, right? There's always a black market somewhere. So prohibition was a bad idea, right? How bad? Well, whenever government decides to ban something or, just do anything, they think it as a way of being a noble experiment. So prohibition was undertaken initially to reduce crime. So no alcohol, you reduce crime and corruption. I hate to break it to you, but those hardcore drinkers and some of them that are addicted to alcohol or even just casual drinkers who've had a hard day at work, you say no alcohol and they're likely to punch you in the throat. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not an excessive drinker by any means, but after a hard day's work, I would enjoy a beer or two. And if you told me no, I'd probably be okay with it. But there was also people that if you told no, they'd literally punch you in the face. So, and that's essentially what happened. Government came in and banned alcohol throughout the entire nation, and people revolted. They did it anyway. So their grandiose plan was to reduce crime, corruption, solve social problems. Let's be honest, alcohol generally leads to more social fun than problems, unless you're an alcoholic. Reduce the tax burden created by prisons and poorhouses, and improve the health and hygiene in America. I always say, instead of an apple a day, a beer a day keeps the doctor away. That's just me. I don't eat healthy anyway. But the results of that experiment proved to be detrimental, and it was a failure on all accounts. So the evidence was overwhelmingly clear. It affirms a sound economic theory. It predicted that prohibition would mutually benefit exchanges, and it proved that it was a failure. The government didn't learn the lessons, and they essentially, as you know, history, they made the 18th Amendment, which banned the sale and distribution and possession of alcohol across the country. They later on had to repeal the amendment with the 21st Amendment because finally they decided that you can make money on alcohol tax. So when the government decides to ban something in the name of something good they deem, they eventually fail and then learn, hey, I'll just tax it and then I'll make money that way. Seems kind of familiar, right? Because that's kind of what they did during the war on drugs. Oregon, not so much. They went extreme. They decided to decriminalize all hard drugs, and instead we'll just give you a needle to help you. And like in California, there's safe spaces for doping and shooting up cocaine, but there's no mental health places. There's no drug rehab places. Those are closing. But we'll help you give you a needle. Isn't that great? Instead of cleaning up the streets, they're helping you keep your addiction alive. Because they don't want to criminalize it, they want you dead on the streets. That's cheaper on taxes. So their effort on war on drugs mounted to no alcohol related issues at all. It didn't stop alcohol at all. What it released was bootlegging, moonshine business, and so it mounted to efforts to reduce alcohol and tobacco and censors and bans on insider trading, abortion, and gambling. So they decided that, this will work. Let's try to ban alcohol and then ban trading and then ban abortion and then gambling. That didn't really work out well. So when, as we've noted, when the government tries to prohibit something nationally, more problems persist. And that's really the heart of today's show. We've learned that whenever the government touches, it breaks. And you're seeing it all around. Remember when the government decided during COVID that you needed to get vaccinated. You needed to wear a mask. You needed to get boosters. You are not essential. You need to stay home. You need to stay 6 feet apart. You see, when the government decides that it can push and push and push and ban and ban and ban, it doesn't work. Because what happened during these last 2.5 years during COVID? For the first 30 days, everybody kind of was like, all right, let's see what we're up against. Let's see what we're dealing with. We don't know what this virus is doing, right? When Trump got Operation Warp Speed in hand, we saw the effects of the work of cutting red tape, right? You applaud him for getting a vaccine pushed through, but I think he made a grave mistake allowing the bureaucrats to take over, and the rest is history. You have Dr. Fauci running amok. You have Democrats in states running amok and still shutting down and making you wear a mask or wear 3 masks or taking 47 boosters. So the effects of governments mandating, banning, forcing you to do things outside the realm of the Constitution and your rights and liberty, it never ends well. And 2023, we're seeing the pushback. You're seeing the government take back some of these mandates. You're seeing the government push back some of the things they banned. Because the ban on oil didn't do anything. Remember, they're going to stop fracking or stop drilling because of all this bad fossil fuels. Now you're seeing the results of being hostile toward an industry that fuels our everyday life. You're seeing gas prices and fuel prices and grocery prices. Everything has gone up as a result of being hostile towards one of our largest industries to date. So, what won't the government ban? Well, just about, a small list. They'll ban a little of everything they can, but the repercussions generally sometimes are colossal. So that's what we're going to get into. Up next, after the break, I'm going to get into the banning of gas stoves. You got to hear this. And this isn't just right-wing conspiracy theory like they'll tell you on TV, because we're all throwing a fit over M&Ms and the candies that apparently are talking, and they're women and men, but they had sneakers on now. All that. So it's all conspiracy. It's all right-wing fanatic. We're all freaking out. Well, I'm going to tell you when we get back that even CNN and MSNBC is telling you about an agency getting ready to stop gas stoves from being a thing in the future. Stay right here on the other side of the break. Cities 92.9. Welcome back to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloom is normal. This is Ryan Mack, and you're listening to The Ryan Mack Show. So the first segment, I broke down what won't the government ban, right? And the attempts at making laws that are unconstitutional all across the board. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They either legislate it, or they executively write it, or they come out and say, this is what we're going to do by a certain date, right? So what used to be called misinformation and right-wing conspiracy, now even lamestream media, CNN, is talking about this. I don't know if you've heard this in the news. This was probably a couple weeks ago, but I've shared a bunch of memes on my Facebook page about this. So gas stoves. Who doesn't love a gas stove, right? To quote, to paraphrase Kamala Harris, who doesn't love a yellow school bus? Well, who doesn't love a gas stove? I mean, if you think about a gas stove, I sure love gas stoves. I love to cook on a gas stove. When you think about gas stoves, you really think the fabric of American life, right? I mean, who doesn't love a gas stove? Well, apparently Democrats don't, and EPA environmentalists don't. They hate natural gas. They hate gas stoves. In fact, they'll do it on climate change. They'll do it on some made-up study that they said asthma is caused or health problems are caused by natural gas. Well, if you looked on Twitter, there's several people who can't seem to help but call every person that disagrees with them a conspiracy nut or a right-wing extremist and a fantasy lover of just all these crazy ideas, such as they're going to try to ban gas stoves. So even CNN has talked about this. A federal agency is considering a ban on gas stoves. This is the source on the article. An indoor pollution linked to childhood asthma. It's a source of indoor pollution. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not much of the oil fanatic. I'm not much of gas or energy expert. I don't claim to be. But I'm pretty sure natural gas is one of our cleaner forms of energy that we use outside of nuclear. Coal is probably one of our dirtiest. Okay? So, I'm sure it has some risks, but the benefits outweigh those risks. Most notably, it's cheaper. Have you ever tried to buy an electric stove versus a gas option? It's sometimes $300 and $400 difference depending on where you go for an option to getting electric. Not to mention, they suck. Have you ever tried to cook or sear a steak on an electric stove? You can't control the flame. You can't control the heat any faster on an electric stove. It's very hard to control the temperature of cooking food. The oven is an oven, so it might work just the same. But the whole idea of natural gas stoves makes it easier and cheaper. And these insane ideas should drive everybody nuts. But it's already happening in some of these states, and I'll get to those in a minute. So if you know the name of the Consumer Product Safety Commissioner, kind of a inside house name, right? Richard Trumka Jr. His dad must have been a real winner. So he sets off a firestorm this week by saying in an interview with Bloomberg that gas stoves posed a hidden hazard and suggested the agency could ban them. Now, I don't know about you, but reading that from a commissioner saying they should be banned, that doesn't sound like a right-wing conspiracy. I mean, what do you guys think? Am I over the line here? I wasn't the one who started talking about bans on the gas stoves. Give a shout out, 309-451-9299. Let me know what you think. What else won't they ban at this point if they're banning gas stoves? How many of y'all have gas stoves? I got a gas stove. Be interested to see how many in our whole listening area has a gas stove versus electric. Let me know. If you're just joining us, by the way, this is the Ryan Mack Show on Saturdays 2 to 3. I am your host, Ryan Mack, Ryan McKenzie. You can call me anything you want. Just don't call me a journalist. I am not. I'm an opinion talk host. So we're talking about the article from CNN considering a federal agency ban. He confirmed to CNN that, quote, everything's on the table when it comes to gas stoves, but stressed, here's the important part, stressed that any ban would apply to only new gas stoves, not existing one. Huh, thank goodness that I wouldn't get the FBI in my door screeching and busting it down so that they can take my gas stove out of my dead, lifeless hands. If they can do it for guns, you bet your bottom dollar that they will come to your door and go, give me that General Electric stove. I want it. I'm taking it. It's illegal. They're doing it already for guns. They're doing it for classified documents. They'll do it for your gas stove. They'll take it. They'll wheel it right out without a warrant because they'll say environment cause. So when he says everything's on the table, what does he mean everything is on the table when it comes to gas stoves? Does he mean it literally? So it only applies to new gas stoves. So again, with the gas cars correlation, it's the same thing applies here to gas stoves. They're going to just take away the new ones if you go to buy one. So let's say your 13-year-old stove takes a crap and you go to buy a new one. You know, you go to Sears, if they're still around in your parts of the woods. If you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, you know, one of those big box stores, you buy an electric stove or buy a gas stove, you know, search for a new gas stove. I would bet by the same year that cars are going to be outlawed, gas stoves will probably be too, because if big bad oil companies are bad, so is natural gas pipelines. So by the year 2035, we may no longer have any options for gas stoves. It'll be all electric. How fancy is that? When you don't pay your bill, your electricity bill, or you're too conservative, they'll turn off your stove because it's electric and they can control that now. Fancy that. So I just wanted to point out that a federal agency is considering a ban on stoves, but they've been trying to walk it back all week. Funny how they do that now. It is literally the dumbest thing in the world to try to do, but every idea that the Democrats have ever had is dumb. If you listen to Dan Bongino's show during the week, right here on Cities from 11 to 2, you'll hear him say that a lot about the correlation between Democrats and Republicans. So, indoor gas stove usage is associated with an increased risk of asthma among children. So there's a study, and this study was from the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. So 2022 December study. And natural gas prices have been low in a related article to this. So gas prices have been low since the start of the war, apparently. So they did this ridiculous study, and it came to the point that 13% of current childhood asthma in the U.S. is attributable to gas stove use. 13%. How many hundreds of millions of kids are there in America? And you're going to attribute 13% of those asthma cases to a freaking gas stove? I can almost bet you all those houses that have those asthmatic kids are probably middle class to lower income. You know, the ones who can't freaking afford an electric stove? Are you kidding me? They claim to be the same party who helps the middle class, yet they are doing everything they can to absolutely destroy the middle class with all of their stupid policies. Gas cars. You know what the number one consumer of a gas car is? The middle class or lower income. That's who? Rural America. We're driving pickups. We're driving SUVs. Those are gas guzzlers. They're not going after the rich, the AOCs with their freaking Tesla. They're going after you and I. I drive an F-150. I'm never going to drive an electric vehicle. You can take it from my cold, dead hands. Not happening. So they cite this ridiculous study. It's a CNN, mind you, so it's not just a right-wing conspiracy. CNN is talking about this agency. Trumka goes on. Trumka tells the CNN agency he plans to open up public comment on the gas stove hazards. Plans to open public comment. Like, okay, I guess we'll have to have comment from the public because, 48% of the households have a gas stove. So he goes on, notes that the CPSC has not coalesced around a solution. It is still gathering information and preparing for public input. Oh, so they're going to seek the public input, finally, on an important issue. I bet you none of those rich a-holes that decide these policies have a gas stove because they're driving their Tesla plugged into their fossil fuel power outlet. An electric stove is also plugged in to the same fossil fuel driven electricity running their home. It's not magical fairy dust. Ridiculous. But the White House, get this, asserted that Joe Biden does not support a ban on gas stoves, and lawmakers in Washington recently argued that Black, Latino, and low-income households are more likely to be affected by these adverse reactions because they are either more likely to live near a waste incinerator or coal ash site or in a home with poor ventilation. Do you understand what that just said? I just said that bans would be terrible because most of the population who owns a gas stove is middle class to lower class. Now they're even going a step further. They're saying this would be more likely to be affected because gas stoves are only in communities of Black, Latino, and low-income households are more likely to be affected by these adverse reactions. So they live next to a waste incinerator. I don't know about you, but most of the communities that I've been into and the little one that I live in, we're not next to any of these sites. I'm not in a home that has poor ventilation. Where are they getting this crap? But Trumpka, nonetheless, pushes back on politicians' fears. We're not looking to go into anyone's homes and take them away that are already there. We don't do that. Oh, really? Because you're doing it to the rifles that you ban across the country. You're doing it to the magazines. You're doing it to people's cell phones. They're doing it everywhere. The commissioner also points out that this just goes on again. It talks about new products only. Consumers always have the choice when it comes to their home, what they keep, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we have a choice, except when the bureaucrat unelected says, you know what would be a good idea? Why don't we ban your remote control? Because we should really decide what you should be watching on your TV, not you. Okay. Does anyone else out there get really mad at the stupidity of some of these people? Like, does it ring a bell? They don't care what best interest you have. It's about making their lives easier and how they can control yours. Hey, come back after the break. We'll get into more details. You're listening to the Ryan Max Show on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to the Ryan Max Show on Cities 92.9. We've been talking about bans by the government and what won't they ban. And some of the most recent ones that they've done are banning gasoline cars by 2035. They're going to ban gas stoves, apparently, just new ones, no old ones, right? Your future purchase has to be electric or just a fire. That's fine because we've advanced so far as a community and as a nation and as a mankind. So now it's not just the federal government coming after your gas stoves. It's state and local governments. Several states, apparently, have decided that natural gas is bad for a multitude of reasons. And cities, in fact, have created a new regulation that would ban all natural gas in new buildings. And that's being considered by more states. So the government is, in fact, coming after your natural gas, not just the federal government, state and local. So although this article, I think I got it from Fast Company website. So the federal government says they're not coming after your gas stoves, despite anything that was on the table. But dozens of cities and some states are already moving away from natural gas in a way that will make it useless to buy a gas stove, even if they aren't banned. We've seen this with gun legislation. We're not going to ban your guns outright. We're not going to take your guns from you, but what we'll do is make it ungodly impossible for you to own a gun because it'll be expensive and regulatory and you can't carry the frickin' thing anywhere. Amazing how that works. They do just enough to not take away most of your rights, just half of your rights, and call it, we're doing it for your own good. Okay, so 2019, Berkeley, California became the first city in the U.S. to change its building code to ban gas hookups in new buildings. Oh, such a sustainable issue. Man, I would love to see those buildings. Just no natural gas. So efficient. I bet their power bill is really cheap, too. Not. It was a response to the climate emergency. The climate emergency causes a ban on natural gas in buildings. Nearly a third of the city's emissions came from natural gas. I don't believe that at all. Did they study that, the impact? The city council member who proposed the bill, quote, recognized the need for us to stop the expansion of a growing source of greenhouse gas emissions in the city. Why don't you try not digging up freaking earth to get your electric car? That would stop the emissions. Oh, I don't know. Stop allowing drugs to be smoked everywhere. That could also stop the pollution. Or just not live. We could just not have people. That'd be great, because then you can have no pollution. You think China's on board with that? No. They're creating more pollution. So this article just is a continuation of the stupidity of the left and their bans. So that local cities, Washington State, in fact, is one of states that are banning natural gas and new code. So this just goes into a list of cities, states, and places that are banning new building codes. So if you get a brand new house in Washington State or places like LA and those other liberal hellholes, you're going to see bans on natural gas. So if you're buying a new house, please don't build in those states because you're not going to have any choice before too long. They'll be able to ban whatever they want in your house eventually. All right, so if you want to be a part of the show, feel free to text in 309-451-9299, 309-451-9299. I've been talking about government bans, not just legislation, not just executive fiat, but just talking about how many times can we rupture the trust in the public? Let's make a stupid idea like banning gas stoves or banning gas cars. Well, I've got one, and I think you've heard about it. USA Today. This was back in September. California plans 2035 ban on new gas car sales. 17 states will decide to follow or not. Well, most of them have. So they plan to ban sales of new gas cars by 2035. They're going to require all vehicles to be electric or hydrogen powered. Powered by water. Isn't that great? Except there's a problem, because remember this last year, they were having problems with outages and brownouts and blackouts across California during the heat wave in the summer. And Gavin Newsom comes out in his shiny hairdo and says, hey, stop plugging in your cars. We don't have enough energy. But he wants to ban gas cars by 2035, and then tells you at the same time on the other side of his face that's not camera friendly that, hey, you're using too much energy. Stop plugging in your cars. In other words, I'm controlling how you do things now. You're going to bow to me. I say when you get to drive that car. I say where you go. I say what goes in your house. Is that how you want to live in America? I sure as hell don't. But hey, you do you, California. Just leave us all the hell alone. So these 17 states that decided to go California have vehicle emission standards tied to established of rules in California. Now they're weighing whether or not to follow a similar mandate. You can't get any dumber than that. As California goes, the rest of the freaking country goes. And you know where that goes? Into the ocean. That's where that happens. It used to be, as New York City goes, so does the rest of the nation. And it was a beacon for American way of life. New York was this big, prosperous, shining sea at the top of the hill. And now they're a cave of lost degenerates. And California's right there with it. They're going to be falling in the ocean pretty soon because of all their policies. They won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to hold a knife in your kitchen, your own freaking kitchen. And you won't be able to cook on a gas stove. You'll be cooking an electric stove. And if you can't afford a gas stove and you're a nice, expensive house in San Francisco, you'll be able to cook on a fire. But pretty soon they'll ban fires because fire bad. Because gas was bad because gas made fire. And now fire's bad. So they're just going to rule anything bad. You're bad. They're going to say just you're bad. That's how they're going to end it. So gas-powered vehicles. So giddy up. So all you SUV driving, you pickup rednecks, you bunch of hippies and your gas-powered cars, they're going to ban those too. All right. So not only are they going to ban your stove, they're going to take your stove out. They're going to take out your car in 2035. You'll be driving a bicycle and smoking weed from some guy's lighter that they tried to ban at that point. Now we have an assault weapons ban. Again, some stupid policy. Democrats decided to jump on and say, yeah, this is really good. This will be really good because safety. Just like prohibition. When you ban the sale of alcohol, what happened? Anybody? Yeah, it didn't work because they had a backdoor access to selling alcohol. They sold moonshine. It became a multi-million-dollar industry. Whenever the government bans something, it always repeals it or gets rid of it because it decides, hey, I want some of that money. Man, I wish they could just see this before they make the legislation. Chime in. 309-451-9299. This is the Ryan Mack Show, and you are listening to some epic talk today about bans of all kinds. It's really ridiculous. What won't the government and these unelected bureaucrats get their hands on next to think that we know better than you do what's good for you? We know everything, so just give us all of your attention. We'll take your gas stoves, we'll take your gas cars, and you'll own nothing and like it. That's what their end goal is. So, this assault weapons ban. Now, what you say is an assault weapon? Oh, I will tell you right here. High capacity, detachable magazines fit in these military style semi-automatic weapons. Military style? Last time I checked, AK-47s and AR-15s are not military style weapons. Now, where am I getting this information? Oh, one organization that really should be on board with helping children be better. That's right. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a favored position on assault weapons bans. Should they? No. I want the American Academy of Pediatrics concerned with my child's health. That is all. Oh, but they say it has a major impact on your child's health. Their advocacy to restore the ban. So they want a national ban because it expired 2004. Because the 10-year ban that they implemented didn't work because it didn't reduce crime and it made things worse. It expired. But nonetheless, they want it revived because they think it's going to help all kids survive. If you just ban assault weapons, kids will be better. Okay. So states have enacted their own bans on assault weapons. Again, assault weapons, anything the government has made up and called their own. They're also considering bans on bump stocks, which are trigger accelerating devices. This was back in 2017, of course. Their position is committed to protecting children from firearm-related injury. Firearm-related injury. Well, most gun owners in America know how to keep their guns locked and away from children. Now, there are accidents. Yes, there are. There are accidents, you say. But in the absence of guns in homes and communities is the most reliable and effective measure to prevent firearm-related injury and violence in children and adolescents. To prevent gun-related deaths and injuries, the AAP recommends that pediatricians provide firearm safety counseling to patients and their families. Because that's what they should be providing, not health care for your kids. They also recognize the deadly consequences of firearms to children, adolescents, and young adults. The AAP supports firearm regulation. Hey, stick around. This is Cities 92.9 News and Talk of Bloomington Normal. We'll be right back after break. Welcome back to the Ryan Mack Show on Cities 92.9. This is Ryan Mack. Feel free to text in about what I've been talking about today. 309-451-9299 is the number. I've been talking about banning and the government banning everything that we use. Guns, cars, stoves. They have already done that with social media. They've banned and censored conservative thought. But now, today, I've been talking about what won't they ban on a personal and consumer level. I've discussed everything from prohibition, how that worked out, to assault weapon ban I'm just currently on, and gas stoves, natural gas in buildings, and cars. All that the government is deciding to ban and take away from you, not to mention the World Economic Forum. So, continuing, from the American Pediatrics Academy, American Academy of Pediatrics, we're discussing about how they feel assault weapons should be banned again nationally because it's safer for kids. I don't know about you, but the last time I took my kid to the pediatrician, assault weapons never came up as a possible hazard. I'm just going to throw it out there. Colds, flus, COVID-19 I don't know, measles, mumps, those kinds of things will get you talked about at the pediatrician's office, not assault weapons. But here are some facts, according to the American Pediatrics Academy. Assault weapons are dangerous military-style weapons that are built to do the most damage and kill or maim. Okay, so when you use an AR-15 or AK or most handguns, you're not really looking to kill most people anyway. You're looking to just stop the person from committing said offense. You're maiming the maximum number of people in the shortest amount of time. Again, assault weapons are dangerous military-style weapons. Wrong. They're not. They're the commonly most used weapon in America. It's not an assault weapon. It's an AR-15 rifle or pistol and an AK-47 semi-automatic weapons. Assault weapons, they say, are distinguishable from the other semi-automatic firearms based on the combat-style features that allow a shooter to control the weapon while quickly discharging large amounts of ammo. That's not true. Semi-automatic does not mean multiple shots and one trigger. It doesn't. Semi-automatic means one trigger pull, one freaking shot. How dumb are the Democrats to believe this still? And now they're forcing organizations like the pediatrics to go along with it too, because, safety of kids, health, it's health. We're all about health. The public supports banning assault weapons. Oh, they cited the Johns Hopkins University poll, because that's accurate. 69% of respondents support a ban of the sale of military-style assault rifles. Yeah, because they don't know what they are. You're telling them, should we ban assault weapons that are military use? Yeah, absolutely. We shouldn't have them publicly. But they can't even freaking name the style weapon that's being banned accurately. So the study, 68.4% support a ban of large-capacity ammunition feeding devices capable of accepting more than 10 rounds. Sorry to say, but if you need more than 10 rounds to shoot somebody and kill somebody, you're a horrible shot. I'm just saying. A growing number of retailers have also included Walmart, have discontinued sales of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Darn, I can't get my AR-15 at Walmart. I wouldn't buy most things at Walmart, let alone an AR-15. Sorry, Wally World. So, Pediatrics Academy, whatever you're called, AAP, you can just shove it, because that's not the best interest of healthcare. That's the best interest of yourself and your Democrat donating fund. All right. So we've talked about all kinds of bans today. You probably heard about this one. The effects of the 1996 National Firearms Agreement in Australia on suicide, homicide, and mass shootings. I'm just going to give you a summary, because in many ways, Australia has constitution like America. They kind of do the same things, but over the course of the COVID pandemic, they have become a beacon for social takeover by the government. They've lost all freedoms. They have lost all their control over the citizens over there. They've become a beacon that the left would like to use and emulate. So, this is just a summary. I'm not going to go into the whole ordeal because this is a long topic. I might save it for another time. But Australia has a 1996 NFA agreement banning several types of firearms and resulting in the government buying hundreds of thousands of banned weapons from their owners. Studies examining the effect of removing so many weapons from the community have found that homicides, suicides, and mass shootings were less common after the NFA was implemented, although such incidents were declining prior to 1996. The strongest evidence is consistent with the claim that the NFA caused reductions in firearm suicide, mass shootings, and female homicide victimization. However, there's also evidence that raises questions about whether, for at least firearm suicides, that those changes would be contributed to the NFA or to other factors that influenced rates of these outcomes around the time the NFA was implemented. So again, they're incomplete in their study overall on the fact that Australia has this program that they've bought back. The government bought back all their firearms. The country has less. They probably still have more firearms, but the country has less overall capacity compared to America. Australia used to be America of the South, kind of. They have a constitution, but not the Bill of Rights. So America has more say as far as you can't take my guns from me. No matter how hard you try, you're just not going to take it. So this study This whole ordeal, I'll share it to my Facebook page, is done by Rand Corporation. It's a study done, and they determined that while the NFA lowered numbers to an extent, there was already correlation to suggest it was already reducing anyway. So therefore, was the NFA really needed by the government to take away rights of Australian citizens? My humble opinion, Australia has been a disaster on many scales since this happened, and it's become a nightmare to live there. Your freedoms have been taken away, and coming to an America near you, the Democrats love what the NFA brought about in Australia. Take more guns out of citizens' hands, you control the population. It's really what it comes down to. You disarm the population, you can control them. That's why I believe strongly that it will never happen here. Although as much as they try, there are too many gun owners, there are too many guns. You have a thing called the Constitution as well. It's nuts. I can't stress it enough. It's insane that the governments of all these societies, what used to be a beacon of freedom and liberty in the West, has now become China One policy. Take away your guns, take away your rights. We say what you get to do. Now how this works. Hey, thanks for listening today. This has been Ryan Mack Show on Cities 92.9. We've talked all day about banning. Catch my show next week, Saturday, 2 to 3. See y'all later.